Hello, welcome back. Welcome to the continuation of our discussion from the previous session. This time we will use the literally brains of our guests and try to widen the story a little bit, to talk not only about literature, but to talk about the world we live in and the world that inspires some of you guys to write novels, essays, stories, or will inspire you in the future. This debate aims to discuss borders and frontiers in the world that we live in, and we have two excellent writers, Marcin Viha of Poland, whom you had the opportunity to hear during the previous session, writer, graphic designer, cartoonist, writes for, as one of our writers would say, for children of all age, for kids and for the adults as well. And we have a new participant, Elvedin Nezirović of Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina, quite popular writer in Serbia, already got some prizes in Serbia. And the day before yesterday, I tried to find his book, Boja zemlje, in our bookstores. And as I told him, I'm sure it is a good piece of news for him. It can't be found. It is sold out. So it shows that the way you write, the topics that you are bringing to the surface are interesting and engaging, appealing to people here in Serbia as well. Welcome, and I'm looking forward for this opportunity for us to gossip on the world a little bit, to try to analyze where do we live. And do we live in the world where borders are becoming more and more important, and the frontiers are getting more and more distant in certain areas? And which areas would those be? The human rights, the respect for others, the territorial borders, the social barriers that are widening. So all these topics I offer to you guys today. Elvedin Nezirović said when he received the Stevan Sremac Prize in January, I think, yes, at the beginning of this year.
It was actually at the end
for
of
2020,
yeah,
and it was for the best book. You said that the year 2020 you saw as the year of global evil. And you also said that those turbulent times are represent a certain challenge for artists. To answer to the questions, what is so I would like to link that with our topic, borders versus frontiers. From that point of view, how do you see, could you elaborate on that 2020 impression?
Well, I suppose as my impression was very bad, actually. COVID-19 was a new thing in the world, new thing in our lives, and changed actually everything it could be changed. So, I live in a small town in the south of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is actually divided between two ethnicities. We can talk about it if you want later.
Small but famous, Mostar. I'm saying this for Marcin's sake.
In some way it is famous because of his history, culture, etc. And what is important, when COVID came, actually, the city, who is deeply divided between Bosniak and Croats, became united in a fight against evil that we call COVID. Okay, so it gave me a short glimpse of how things can look like if we have perspective that we have some common city, that we have our lives, and we have to, and that we actually want to make things better, to improve our space, the space in which we live in. And COVID actually shows that some kind of togetherness in Mostar is still possible, in spite of all of these things that happened in the 1990s.
So it wasn't all in all the year of evil, at least locally.
Well, evil, always some evil comes something good with evil. Well, if this is good, I think it is in the example of Mostar. You have two politics, two nationalities, political leaders in Mostar, who started to think how to fight with the common enemy, and suddenly things started to change. We started to think as let's say, as a one nation, just as a people, as a human race, and it functioned actually. Maybe this story isn't understandable for people who doesn't know how Mostar is divided and how that division from which we're originated. So for me, it is a very important topic, and it is very important that people show that still can live together.
Marcin, how did it look like from Polish angle? How did you see 2020? It looked like that the planet was slowed down, or even stopped, and everything became clearer. Everything that was good became obviously good, and all the bad things in the world became so transparent. The division between the rich and the poor, from that the mighty and those who are not so powerful, to the very division between those who acknowledge the COVID-19 and do not acknowledge the existence of the disease. Then those pro-vaccines and anti-vaccine movement. So were there more divisions and borders between people, or did you see more examples where people actually joined close ranks, joined their forces to surmount this obstacle?
Pewnego dnia na początku lockdownu
Beginning of the lockdown,
musiałem coś załatwić na mieście i wyszedłem,
I had some errands to run in the city, so I went out
żeby kupić jedzenie, i zobaczyłem w Warszawie coś, czego nigdy wcześniej nie widziałem.
to buy some food. And at that moment, at that point, I saw in Warsaw something I haven't seen before.
Miasto było puste,
The city was completely empty.
ale nie było puste, ponieważ na ulicach zostali bezdomni.
But actually it wasn't, because the only people left at the streets were the homeless.
Bo oni nie mieli gdzie iść, nie mieli gdzie się zamknąć.
Because they had nowhere else to go, no place to go, no place to lock themselves in.
I ten obraz Warszawy, w której kwitły już krzewy, to była wczesna wiosna, i bezdomnych.
And that image of Warsaw at the beginning of the spring,
I bezdomnych,
and the homeless people,
których normalnie nie zauważamy,
the homeless people that we do not normally see,
którzy się kryją, schodzą z oczu, Nie pojawiają się w eleganckich miejscach, bo są wyrzucani przez ochronę.
Because they hide in different places underground, and the security officers are removing them from the streets.
No więc ten obraz został, to jest dla mnie taki najsilniejszy obraz tego 2020 roku.
And for me, that was the most powerful picture of the year 2020.
Wydaje mi się, że ten rok pokazał to wszystko, co jest ukryte.
I think that year showed everything that was hidden before,
Co zawsze było,
and that existed the whole time,
co narastało,
and that was growing.
ale zawsze udawało nam się tego nie widzieć.
But we always thought that we don't see it or didn't see.
Zobaczyliśmy surowy mechanizm funkcjonowania świata w jego wszystkich podziałach.
We saw how cruel all those mechanisms and all the divisions actually function.
Zobaczyliśmy też solidarność i odwagę.
But we also saw, on the other hand, the solidarity and the braveness.
Ale przede wszystkim strukturę
But most importantly, the structure
społeczeństwa i tego, jak wszystko wokół nas jest zbudowane.
Of the society and of how everything works.
Jak państwo działa,
How the government and how the country works.
jak międzynarodowa współpraca działa,
And the international cooperation, how that works also.
jak działają media
How the media works,
i tak dalej.
and so forth.
An inspiration in the fact that almost whole world was forced to slow down or to stop functioning. It's a bizarre situation that we find ourselves in right now. Companies like Virgin are advertising space tourism. You can go to you can pay a ticket to go around to leave Earth to see space that was reserved for astronauts and scientists. On the other hand, it was for a certain period of time difficult to come from Warsaw to Belgrade, or from Mostar to Belgrade, or even to go from one street from one neighborhood to another. Elvedin, you said that it was quite a situation so different from normal that it does serve as an inspiration for artists. Is there something cooking in your head in reference to that situation?
Actually, I haven't wrote any piece of text during the lockdown. And I don't know what is the reason of that. Maybe the reason is that I have a family, I have a lot of jobs, etc., and everything stops. And I was worried actually for what happened with the world, not only for us. And that kind of fear is very known to me. I have a lot of fears during the war because I live in Mostar all the time between 1992 and 1995, and actually it brings me some trauma that I have earlier. So in that state of mind, I couldn't actually write even a page of text. So. When things started to change, actually, maybe few months ago or something, well, I completely started to move, and I started to write. So it's very strange experience, and actually I still didn't know, is this a real reason, because I stopped to think as a writer, not only to write.
Mm-hmm. Let's get a little bit political, if you don't mind. How do you see the world today, Marcin? Is it some 17 years ago, right? Poland joined the European Union. Right? The EU is all about being united. It's all about living together. it's all about dismissing borders as places where you physically feel the division between those who are on the other side. When you think of those times, and when you reflect on the world today in 2021, do you see borders resurfacing again as important, or do you see or does the idea of borderless Europe prevails?
Zastanawiam się, jak odpowiedzieć,
I'm wondering how to reply to your question.
żeby nie ujawnić swojego czarnego pesymizmu.
And while trying not to be very darkly pessimistic.
Więc odpowiem trochę nie na temat. Mam nadzieję, że pani nie zaprotestuje.
I hope you will forgive me, but I will evade the topic a little bit.
Zawodowo interesuję się designem, projektowaniem
Professionally, I am a designer.
i rozmawiam też ze studentami, którzy się zajmują projektowaniem i młodymi projektantami.
So I often talk to students and young designers.
Sam skończyłem studia 30 lat temu
I myself have finished my studies some 30 years ago.
i ciągle na nowo sobie uświadamiam, jak niewiarygodna zmiana nastąpiła w tym czasie, jak się zmieniły podstawy naszego myślenia o świecie.
And I am constantly wondering about how the very basis of everything have changed during those 30 years.
Mam na myśli kryzys klimatyczny czy katastrofę klimatyczną,
Like the climate catastrophe or the climate crisis, for example,
globalizację,
the globalization.
mam na myśli to, co się stało z kapitalizmem w ciągu ostatnich 30 lat czy ostatnich 50 lat.
And what happened to or with capitalism in the last 30 or even 50 years.
Ten tramwaj dojeżdża do ostatniego przystanku,
And that tram is coming to its last stop.
a dalej nie ma szyn.
And there are no tracks further.
I ostatni rok uświadomił nam, że my po prostu nie wiemy, co robić dalej.
So this last year made us realize that we have no idea what we're going to do and what we're doing.
A jeśli nawet podejrzewamy, bo dla moich dzieci nie ma już żadnej wątpliwości, co należy robić, ale dla starszych to jest niejasne.
My children or their generation can have some idea, but for my generation we have no idea, really.
A jeśli nawet ma ideę, to uważają za politycznie niemożliwą do realizacji.
And even if we do have some idea or some suspicions about what to do, we are quite unsure about how to bring it into life.
I to, co się teraz dzieje w Unii Europejskiej, te mury, które wyrastają na jej zewnętrznych granicach, te podziały, które się dokonują w środku, to, że
And what is happening within the European Union nowadays, all the borders and all the walls that are being built up.
To, że mój kraj coraz bardziej się od tej Unii oddala.
And that my country is not going forward.
To jest objaw,
It is a symptom.
nie choroba. To jest objaw, nie choroba.
It is a symptom, it's not a disease.
Symptom tego, że kiedy nie wiemy, co robić, uciekamy się do starych odpowiedzi na stare pytania, że kiedy nie wiemy, co przyniesie przyszłość, chcemy myśleć o przeszłości.
And it is a symptom of us not knowing what to do, of us relying on our previous experiences and us returning to the past, being confronted with the future.
Kiedy nie umiemy współpracować jako ludzkość.
And in times when we do not know how to cooperate as humanity.
Kiedy nie umiemy być solidarni.
And when we do not know how to be solidarity.
Kiedy jesteśmy zbyt przerażeni.
And when we are quite scared.
Uciekamy do nacjonalizmu.
We retreat to nationalism,
i populizmu,
to populism,
i faszyzmu na końcu.
and fascism even.
The parents are gone, the kids are too young. So you can't avoid taking certain responsibilities. What you talk about is something that we here, I think, understand very well. Nobody wants to take responsibility. Everybody sits paralyzed, and it seems that the only thing we do, we talk about how bad things are and how nothing can be done.
Touché. Ostatnie 5 lat
During the last 5 years,
dla mojego pokolenia było czasem przebudzenia,
for my generation, it was a time of awakening,
wielkiej polityczności,
of
polityzacji,
of extreme politicization, so to speak.
w tym okresie po wstąpieniu do Unii Europejskiej, po upadku komunizmu i po wstąpieniu do Unii Europejskiej.
After we became a part of the EU and after the fall of communism,
Uważaliśmy, że rządzenie jest domeną profesjonalistów, których się wynajmuje do tego zadania.
we thought that governing is a job for the politicians and for the specialists.
Dopiero ostatnie lata nas obudziły.
And only the last couple of years have awoken us.
Stworzyły ogromny ruch protestu
There were waves of protests
w Polsce,
in Poland,
zainteresowania polityką,
and people became more interested in politics.
zainteresowania obroną praw kobiet.
But not only politics, but also the defense of the women's rights.
Ale ujmując rzecz w skrócie,
But shortly speaking,
na razie przegrywamy.
we are losing so far.
Thank you. For Elvedin and myself, it is, I think, always easy to talk about politics and to talk about borders, because while we were watching and witnessing the Europe getting united, in our region, a different process was unfolding. So when you think about borders, about their importance, or irrelevance, and when you think about the region, how does it look like?
Well, I don't have to think about the region when I talk, or when I think about the borders. I have a lot of borders. I have a lot of borders inside my country, and if you want, inside my own city. Well, those borders are not visible, they are not physical, but they are really live in the heads of citizens, of the population, etc. I don't know, I think politics is a very important thing in finding a solution of, let's say, a kind of reconciliation or normalization of social state in the region. We actually have to find a way how to prevail our problems with history, because it is fact that we still here have 3 different histories, and when we learn how to relate to each other with more respect than it is the case now, I think that we have a chance to make some future for our kids here.
Mm-hmm. I read what people write about, having read your books. They say you write about heartbreaking things. You write about war, you write about loss, but you, from your books do not spread hatred. There's no judgment. There are no calls for revenge, retaliation, and perhaps that is the magic formula. When you bring things from high politics to very personal experiences, then it's really easy to understand another person.
You're right. Actually, what we have been talking in Balkans for 25 last years or more, 28 or I don't know, 30, we all talk about our political ideas, our political concepts, but we don't have a lot of events like these when you can actually speak about personal experiences of war, of evil, of how it's horrible live in that kind of surroundings where you actually where is the fear, the constant feeling, and you wake up with fear, you live with fear, and that is the fear of naked fear of your own life, for lives of your closest ones. And when you put things in that perspective, I think that we all have same fears. When we, that's why I talk about the COVID. When COVID appeared, the people in Mostar start to think as a human being. The fear is the same on both sides of Mostar. So they started to think as a human beings, as equal to each other, and that was amazing for me, that amazing experience. And I'm really convinced if we put things in personal perspectives, if we talk about our small personal tragedies, we can find understandings very easy.
Mm-hmm. There are personal tragedies coming towards Europe these days from Afghanistan. How did it happen, Marcin? What do you think, that countries from the east of Europe, once they got on their feet, once they, their lives started improving financially, economically, politically, and when the flow of migrants came, then those countries started creating new borders. We saw fences, we saw electricity in some of them. We saw the attempts to defend our world or somebody else's worlds. Somebody else, when I say somebody else, I mean those who are even more to the west, to defend what we have from people who suffer. We, the people from southeastern Europe, were accused of being especially harsh on those on the immigrants. Some less, some more. But Poland, Hungary, especially, were seen as countries where there is a zero tolerance. How do you explain that?
Mógłbym spróbować.
I can try.
Mógłbym.
I could try.
Gdybym był historykiem, socjologiem albo antropologiem,
If I were a historian, an anthropologist, or a sociologist.
ale nie jestem.
But I'm not.
I wszystko, co powiem, zabrzmi jak usprawiedliwienie,
And everything I say may sound as an explanation.
a ja chcę po prostu powiedzieć, że się tego wstydzę.
And I have to say that, sorry.
Ashamed.
Yeah, I feel ashamed.
I'm deeply ashamed.
Dzięki.
I'm deeply ashamed. I'm disillusioned about Polish people and East Europeans as such. But most important feeling is just a deeply heartbreaking shame. I nie jestem w tym sam.
And I'm not alone in it.
No i wiem, że to nie jest odpowiedź,
I know that this is not really an answer to your question,
ale staram się trzymać obszaru mojej ekspertyzy.
But I'm trying to stick to my area of expertise.
Są ci, którzy wyjaśniają
There are people who can offer explanations,
i ci, którzy się wstydzą
and there are people who are feeling ashamed,
i wolę należeć do tych drugich.
and I am a part of the other group.
We have borders and we have frontiers. Frontier being something more positive, something that like a distant goal that you want to achieve. We also have in these difficult times we had incredible opportunities to be together, to cross borders even if they were very firm, to surmount obstacles because we have new technologies. We have internet. You can have people from Spain, from New York, from Australia participating in a debate. You can work together. You can teach students from the distance. Do you see that as a good thing, as something positive?
Generalnie tak.
Generally speaking, yes.
Natomiast mam wrażenie, że przyspieszył się taki proces,
But on the other hand, I have a feeling that a certain process is being speed up,
który polega na tym, że nasze życie coraz bardziej odbywa się w formie cyfrowej.
which means that our lives are being more and more evolving in this digital age, yes.
I jesteśmy znowu na nieznanych wodach,
And we are once again in unknown waters,
których nie kontroluje nasza demokracja.
which our democracy is not in control of.
Ale chciałem powiedzieć coś na temat designu
But I wanted to say something about design
i tego rozróżnienia na borders and frontiers.
and the difference between borders and frontiers.
Kiedyś, kiedy rozmawiało się z designerem,
Once, when you would speak to another designer,
który projektował krzesło,
which designed a chair,
to on był od tego, żeby zrobić projekt krzesła.
it was his job to project, to design a chair.
Nie interesowało go, z czego powstanie to krzesło,
He wasn't interested in what that chair is made of.
nie interesowało go, ile energii trzeba na to poświęcić, ile materiału
And how much material and energy you should invest in it.
i co stanie się z tym krzesłem, kiedy przestanie być potrzebne.
And what will happen to that chair when it is no longer in use or necessary.
Kiedy dzisiaj rozmawiasz z architektem albo studentem designu,
Nowadays, when you talk to an architect or a design student,
to on wie, że wszystko to jest też w obrębie jego odpowiedzialności.
nowadays they know that everything I just said comes within his responsibility.
Nie tylko zaprojektowanie opakowania,
Not only the project or the design of the packaging.
ale też co zrobić z tym cholernym plastikiem, który zostanie.
Jeszcze raz sobie nie słyszę.
Co zrobić z tym cholernym plastikiem, który trzeba
Aha,
wyrzucić.
but also, yeah, they are quite aware of what we should do with the plastics that come with the product.
Kiedy rozmawiasz z najmądrzejszymi architektami mojego pokolenia, czy młodszymi,
When you speak to the most intelligent architects and the designers of my generation,
oni mówią, budujemy miasta nie tylko dla ludzi,
they say that we are building cities not only for people,
także dla roślin,
but also for plants,
także dla zwierząt,
but also for animals,
także dla rzek.
but also for rivers.
We wszystkich tych rozważaniach
And in all that thinking and planning,
chodzi o przekraczanie granic.
what is most important is the crossing of borders, frontiers.
Granic pomiędzy gatunkami,
Interspecies borders
granic pomiędzy nami i innymi ludźmi
between ourselves and other people,
I też tych granic w czasie, które dotyczą naszej odpowiedzialności za zaprojektowany budynek albo produkt.
But also time borders, because we are all responsible for the products we make.
To jest wielka zmiana.
That, I think, is the greatest change.
I jedną z części tej zmiany jest to,
And one part of this large change
że coraz więcej projektantów
is the fact that more and more designers
ma świadomość, że produkujemy i budujemy za dużo.
are aware that they or we are producing too much
Za często.
and too often.
Zbyt chętnie wymieniamy stare rzeczy na nowe.
And we are too glad to exchange old stuff for new, to replace them,
To kosztuje energię,
which costs and it takes energy,
to produkuje dwutlenek węgla.
and it
CO,
I'm sorry.
CO2.
It means that more and more CO2, the coal, is being used.
I wiele osób uważa, że błąd podstawowy
And a lot of people think that the basic mistake
jest w tym paradygmacie niekończącego się postępu.
is the paradigm of a non-stop progress. Yes, thank you.
We must have more and more and more and newer and newer and newer. And when we see frontiers, it means that we should go there and do the next frontiers and next
Jump.
frontiers. Jump from frontier to frontier. Maybe it's not that idea. Maybe frontiers are also dangerous, as more dangerous as borders.
Translated to Polish.
And
Elvedin, we have we are lucky. We have other problems as well.
Yeah.
Here in the region, we once had the country that we all lived. Some of us believe happily together. Then there were wars. There were borders between new states. There were borders inside the states. And now, from time to time, very often for pure political ratings, sometimes maybe genuinely, we hear the ideas that we cannot survive on our own. The region has to get connected. So if you want to call it New Balkans, you call it. If you want to call New Yugoslavia, beware, many might dislike it. But there is there are attempts to have this reverse process. Instead of creating borders, annulling the borders or making the borders more flexible, irrelevant. Do you think that process, when it comes to our region, will be successful or will fail?
It depends. Actually, it depends. The fact is that now in a region, in our let's say our countries. Or countries that we used to make Yugoslavia, it's a fact that we still have a lot of things in common, that we have a lot of things to split up us. So, but what is the problem? The problem is that we still have politics in our countries who passionately, I said, passionately work to make these borders deeper than they are, actually. The language is a real example of how we similar to each other are. We actually speak with one language. I don't need a translator when I publish my books in Belgrade or in Zagreb or in Montenegro. Mm-hmm. And also, we built together a lot of good things, a lot of culture that we had during the 20th century. So I think that those things that we have in common should prevail the things that underline our differences. There are no much things in which we were different. Of course, we have maybe different national tradition, different, I don't know, religious or something, but the accent should be put on the things that we have in common. Unfortunately, I don't have political forces in the region who are working on this process, working very seriously on this process. If we have such political parties, they are very weak, and they are very their influence in society is very weak. So I think we should wait some better times to make things better. Unfortunately, that is how I see actual political moment in the region.
And it is very sad because everybody else, apart from politicians, seems to get along quite nicely. The cultural scene is very vibrant. I mean, the fact that you go to Serbia to receive, where your very book is seen and recognized as the best. That is very encouraging. That is totally the movement against borders and artificial borders.
Yeah, I agree with you, but those things happen in just a few cases. There are incidents actually in this situation. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of that award that I got in Niš. But I would like actually that this space became more open, and for Serbian writers in Bosnia or in Croatia, or Croatian writers in Serbia and whatever, and it had possibility really exist, especially in literature, in language. So I still don't have a very strong or powerful forces to make these things normal, not to be the accidents or something. Just to be normal for, let's say, Vlajsa Arsenijević to get some, I don't know, literary award in Croatia or in Bosnia or in Montenegro, etc. And this not only refers to literature. The same things are in every kind of art and music, for instance. Music is a global language, and in many other examples. And there are a lot of materials for making good things. Let's say Krokodil the festival is a really good thing. And I have been director of Pavarotti Music Center in Mostar for 8 years. And we are still an institution who are trying to make people together in Mostar. And it is very hard, not only because people feel pressure or pressure of history of 1990s. It is hard because the system is oriented to split the people, not to make them together, to unite them. And we had some small grant from the city of Mostar, and it was enough to pay electricity and some other things. We don't have any penny for making projects because the city, as a part of the system, doesn't want to make people together. There is another example. I have my daughter in first gymnasium in Mostar. That gymnasium used to call Aleksa Šantić. After the war, the move of Aleksa Šantić is moved from the title, and the building is split between Bosniak and Croats. But what is significant, the Bosniak kids and Croat kids are separated. And the system called that, the term is two schools upon the same roof. which is actually a euphemism for a kind of apartheid in the heart of the Europe in the 21st century. So, and the other part of the story is the educational system. Educational system is oriented to make our kids the future nationalists. In both cases, in Bosnia cases and in Croatia. I speak about the Mostar now.
Is that process, do you think that that process is, will turn out to be successful? Are we facing the rise of new young generations of nationalists, or of people who would just dismiss the school that is divided and go to study abroad, to live abroad, go to the United States, to Canada, and continue being friends with Serbs, Croats,
I think we have to change system.
Poles?
Yeah. We have to change system. You know, it is, I couldn't imagine, I really couldn't imagine the politic of separation in the small city with, let's say, 15 or 50 or 16,000 people. Everything is composed, you know, to make us together, except our political leaders and nationalists. They keep people in the state of constant fear, and that's the way how they rule, actually. They have a system. They're ruling enough to privatize the system. So it is very, very hard to make progress inside the system. When I was the director of Pavarotti Music Center, we had a lot of grants from European Union, from various charities. World Child from London is one of the founders of Pavarotti Music Center. So we made cultural concepts that actually tried to put accent on music as a global language. That's how we started. So everybody has a need to listen to music, to play the music, etc. And we put the accent on the younger generation. And youngsters started to came, shamelessly, but they started to came in Pavarotti Music Center, and then we mixed them in various music bands. We made a music band from, I don't know, 2 Bosniaks and 3 Croats, and they started to play together, to produce the music, etc. And then we found the problems with authorities. So many of these programs, courses, and seminars are stopped, and actually it is because they were dangerous in some way, that they were perceived as dangerous for a system.
It's good that we, towards the end of this discussion, that we come to young people. Marcin, you already mentioned next generation that will have to deal with what our generation is currently incapable of resolving. You write for children. It seems to me from personal experience that there is a border between writers and young readers. It is. I recently had a conversation with my nephew, who is excellent student. He is in the 7th grade, and he does not understand the concept of reading. He believes that what he has to read are only books that are necessary to pass the exams. Buying books for presents to your friends is something that you rarely come across. How do you break, if there is, I don't know, you are writers, maybe your experiences are better. How do you break, destroy, demolish the border between the old-fashioned writing, hard copy books, and the new generations who cannot get detached from from cell phones. And if it is not in the phone, if it cannot be read within a couple of minutes, then they just drop it.
E-book is an answer.
E-book. Okay.
Mam wrażenie, że na szczęście dzieci trochę czytają.
I do think that kids read a bit.
Dla mnie pisanie dla dzieci było największą nauką pisania,
For me, writing for children was the most important lesson in writing.
Ponieważ czytałem na głos te teksty dzieciom.
Because I used to read to my children out loud.
Nauczyłem się, że muszą być krótkie,
What I learned was that it should be short,
śmieszne
funny,
i musi być dużo onomatopei.
and there has to be a lot of onomatopoeia. Yeah, a lot of sounds.
Bo inaczej przestają słuchać.
Because without that, they would stop listening.
Trzymam się tego nadal.
And that's what I'm sticking to so far.
Ale chciałem coś powiedzieć na temat tego pisania dla dzieci jeszcze.
But returning to your question about writing for children,
Kiedy moja córka była w szkole,
when my daughter was in school,
w pierwszej klasie,
in first grade,
poszliśmy do pani nauczycielki,
we went to her teacher,
która bardzo ją pochwaliła,
who were complimenting her.
mówiąc, ta dziewczynka jest taka grzeczna,
And her teacher was saying that my daughter is so well behaved, well mannered,
jakby jej w ogóle nie było.
as if she weren't around at all.
Ja się wściekłem,
I was furious
bo zrozumiałem, że to jest to, co szkoła mówi dziewczynkom.
because what I realized is that is what the school is teaching the girls.
Ma was nie być. Macie się zachowywać, jakby was nie było.
That they should act as if they were not there.
I książki dla dzieci, które napisałem,
And the books for children that I wrote
są o tym, po pierwsze, że dorośli są śmieszni,
I read there about the grown-ups are funny
że nie należy być posłusznym.
and that you should not be obedient.
I to mi się wydaje najważniejsze przesłanie.
And that, I think, is the most important message that my books give.
Elvedin, how do you see, I don't know, I come from a generation where we were never taught to be invisible. That's how it was in our country. What do you think is, how do you feel about your young readers? Do you get the feedback?
Well, I have to say that most of the feedbacks I have is from the people of my generation and older. And I don't know, maybe it depends of the topics of my books. But they're really tough, and they mostly talk about the 1990s.
And that's that was my next question. Yeah. Do young people want to read? I mean, not kids. Those are not books for children. But do young readers, beginners, want to be confronted with?
Well, I don't know. It is hard to say that young readers don't want to know what happened here during the 1990s. I think there is some wish to clear the things, what happened, and the best way how to clear that is, to read the books of writers that you like. Mm-hmm. But I think eventually that young people become tired of the problems we had during the 1990s. I know that I always when I talk about it, I take my kids as an example. They don't want to hear a lot about the war. They are always, in most of the cases, they are interested in future, not in the past. So I think it's a regular, it's a good thing, because maybe the time that comes will bring us a new generation who will make our future understandable to each other. Yeah. And I think, well, there is a lot of histories today in media and in political narratives and whatever. And I think that we should leave history alone, leave it behind us, and that the history will eventually say what it has to say.
Well, thank you very much. If there is something that you would like to add, if there is a question from the audience, this would be the right time. If not, thank you very much. We are all looking forward to reading your next books. Yes?
Mnie się oczywiście zrobiło strasznie głupio,
I feel a bit stupid, I have to say,
że mówiłem o klimacie, odpadach i krzesłach.
that I was talking about the climate, about the garbage, and about the chairs,
I projektowaniu, bo czasy są straszne
and about the design, because the times are quite terrible.
ale jednocześnie myślę, że po pierwsze klimatyczna katastrofa, ona jest wszędzie, we wszystkich regionach.
But at the same time, I do think that the climate crisis is important, and it's everywhere present in all regions.
Tworzy nowe konflikty i ożywia stare.
It's making new conflicts and reviving the old ones.
I po drugie, wydaje mi się, że mamy jakąś szansę w tym wszystkim tak długo, jak potrafimy marzyć o świecie, który jest jakoś inaczej zbudowany, inaczej stworzony.
And it also, on the other hand, gives us the possibility to dream and think of a better world,
I to jest...
differently created world.
To mi się wydaje ta najlepsza rzecz, jaką można powiedzieć o projektowaniu jako o zajęciu.
And that is, I think, the best and the most important thing that you can say about designing and producing.
Że mówiąc o rzeczach, marzymy o lepszym świecie bez podziałów.
That talking about things, about products, we are dreaming about a better world.
You shouldn't feel stupid at all. Seriously, the eco issues are topics that are currently bringing us close together. Bosnia, Montenegro, Serbia. There are very strong movements and cooperation to preserve forests, clear water. It is also regional and a global problem. And that breaks barriers between borders, between people, the feeling that the planet is something that we inherited and that we should preserve for our children, and that there are no borders. The dirty water comes from Austria all the way to Serbia. If we talk about Danube, if it is polluted there, sooner or later it comes to you. So eco movements are very strong, and they are very appealing to young people. That's second good thing.
W Polsce wydarzyło się coś bardzo ciekawego.
Something very interesting happened in Poland.
Mieliśmy ogromne protesty w obronie puszczy, w obronie lasu.
We had huge protests in defense of forests.
Częściowo skuteczne.
In part, they were efficient.
Ale one dały taki skutek, że ludzie zaczęli się interesować naturą.
But the best consequence of the protest is that people started being interested in nature.
Powstała fala książek na temat rozumienia natury wokół nas.
There was this whole wave of books about understanding nature.
I siebie jako części tej natury.
And ourselves as part of that nature.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elvedin
Thank you.
Nezirović. Marćin, Viha, hvala što ste odvojili vreme da čujemo ova dva važna autora. Ostanite sa nama, ostanite uz Krokodil i pratite i večerašnje događaje. Hvala Vladi Arsenijeviću što nas je okupio.